Okay, hi. It's Laura here from Offer Accelerator Live. I have the pleasure today to be with someone who is going to be talking about peak performance and holistic peak performance in our business and in our lives. And it's a subject that I personally have been fascinated with probably for about 25 years. So I'm actually very excited to be speaking with Lucy Dutton today on the Offer Accelerator Live group. So welcome, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Laura. It's wonderful to be here. And I'm thrilled that it's been a subject that's been a fascination to you for so long.
I yeah, it has actually. And I actually came across, I'll tell you a very quick story of where I sort of started my life with it was because I went to a lecture when I was about 24. So do the maths. And it was about neurolinguistic programs in Regent's Park, in a university in Regent's Park in central London. And they talked about modeling excellence. And I was like, oh, right. And I love the idea that, that there were tools and things that enabled you to perform at a higher level, peak perform. And I was hooked. So that was kind of where I guess I had my awareness open to, we don't just have to trudge along in ourselves, but actually there are lots of amazing stuff that's going to help you do things better. So maybe you could just start with, telling us like, what do you do and sort of how do you do it and who do you do it for and those kinds of things.
Well, I think it's so true what you said. It's one of those things that possibly when you think of peak performance, you think of athletes and they're peak performance, aren't they? And they're the ones that are going to be peak performance. But you can bring all of that stuff and, like you say, model it and put it into your normal life, your business, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're at work. And when you use those strategies, everything becomes so much easier and more streamlined. You're not scattering your focus everywhere. You're not looking at a long to-do list and thinking, where am I? Heck am I going to start? I'm just so overwhelmed. And then you get to the end of your day and you didn't actually do anything because you didn't know where to start. Or if you did, you weren't sure what to do within that thing that you said you were going to do. And so peak performance for me is wonderful because it can be so focused. And when you get that lovely focused time, so it's peak performance includes a high flow state. So I talk about flow states and how to get into those flow states and how to use those flow chunks to really make your day flow, literally to make your day flow. And so there are things that we do that are self-sabotage, and there are many different ways to sabotage yourself. I even did a video on it the other day, Laura, and it was 12 ways that we self-sabotage. 12, and there are even more. And it's like, why would we do that? But sometimes we don't even realize we're sabotaging ourselves. And we're doing
it. And I'm raising my hand because again, I've sort of like, I think everyone does it. And I think there are different levels of it, right? There are some really deep self-sabotaging patterns people run. And there are some sort of like, oh, I didn't start my day and I'm having a coffee and I'm, delay. But actually, I think that, again, I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on how we really disguise it, don't we? We disguise these sabotaging patterns so much so that it's very hard to identify what they are and why we're running it and what we're doing until you kind of crash and burn almost.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Sometimes we don't want to see them. Sometimes we literally can't see them. It's like, why am I not getting from here to here when I really want to be over here and I'm not happy being here? What the heck is it? And I think until you can, if you're somebody who can really look internally, then you're not going to be able to do that unless you have somebody who looks from the outside in, because that person will be able to ask you strategic questions because they know those behaviors, they understand them, and they can pull that out of you. And sometimes it's not the thing that you think it is. It's actually something completely different. And you go, really? That's the thing? And like you said, also, it can be really deep. So it can be from a past trauma, either from this life, and I don't know how open people are, or past lives, because it can come through generational programming that you have that trauma. And that's what's stopping you moving forward, because there's something inside you that's scared, afraid, has anxiety about being successful, having that success in your business. So that can come from way, way back.
It's a very relevant topic to me at the moment, as I am addressing some things that I've been dealing with very deeply, and I think, like, I was saying this to the person that's helping me. Actually, I was saying, I even know, I know all of these tools and things. I know that it all goes on, but actually, you're saying that you need someone from the outside looking in to help you really identify the things that you're running and the patterns that you're running. And I think for people who, whatever it is, whether business, personal, it almost like, I wish in a way at school they'd be like, look, you need to go and get a coach like you, Lucy, who or something similar, and check in with them every month. That investment every month for the rest of your life, or every quarter, whatever it is, going to pay dividends for you, because otherwise you just store things up, don't you? And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And what does that end up costing you? I'm doing your pitch here for you.
No, it's very true.
I obviously it's a very deep topic, but what are the kind of, how do you go about it? Let's talk about the things that we don't want, and then we'll talk about the things that we do want. So in terms of the things that we don't want, how do you help? Give me some examples of how that works, I guess, in the work that you do.
Right. So with things that people don't want, they don't want to feel frustrated. They don't want to feel overwhelmed. They don't want to get distracted, because they realize that all of that is not making them feel good. It's not moving their business or their personal life forward. And so those are the kinds of things that people get to that point where they're just is like, enough is enough, and I need some help here because I'm struggling. And you don't want to burn out. You might feel like you're on the edge of it. Definitely get some help with, through a coach, whether it's me or somebody else. I don't mind, as long as you get some help. And then if you've gone into burnout, don't get there. It's one of those things that's harder to come out of that than it is if you haven't gone over the edge of it yet. So they're definitely things that we don't want happening. And then, is that what you were meaning by things that you don't want, Laura?
Yeah. No, they're the patterns that you don't want to be running, I guess, and the things that. And I think humans, and I'm not just talking about myself, but humans, as I said to you before we got on here, I've sort of like, I'm just fascinated by the whole area, and I've seen that evolve in different ways in my career, in my personally, but actually there are sort of, I guess, beliefs and behaviors and things that you do that you don't want to be doing. I mean, I guess like a really good example of this is like people who are alcoholics, for instance, it's not good for you, but you still do it. That's kind of extreme example, but there are things that you do in your lives that perhaps, maybe it's responding badly to people maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your, and that you don't want to do those things, but you still do them anyway. We're just going to have a dog check, aren't we? Because
we are having a dog check. He fell over and he's managed to stand up. Just for our listeners, I have a very old Dalmatian who's 13, and
he's falling over. It's terribly sad.
It is very sad.
And I did invite him to the live, but he didn't want to come.
He didn't.
So. No. Is he okay? Is he okay?
Says he's not looking his best today. But yes, and I think when you are talking about something like being an alcoholic or any kind of substances that you know aren't good for you, that's often trying to quiet down a voice inside you that actually needs to deal with something. So you're putting a Band-Aid onto something that's huge that actually needs to be dealt with. And then you go back then into the trauma side of things, because it's probably past trauma in your life or previous life. And I do have a way of dealing with that as well.
And actually, I that was not the best example for me to come up with. And it's not that I'm an alcoholic either. I'm the opposite. But I guess stress is a good one for people watching this. Stress is a good example to give in the things we don't want in our lives, and how we're dealing with the things like stress and burnout and overwhelm. Again, just like, what are the sorts of things that you do with your clients that kind of help them deal with those things?
It's working out what the stresses are. So it's pinpointing the things to start with. So what is stressing you? What's the anxiety? Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
And then often it's eliminating. So instead of adding extra things in, it's eliminating things.
Do we need to take the dog?
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll let you know.
I hear him in the background, and I'm like, I'm worried he's hurting himself.
Yeah, no, he's just about to lie down again.
Okay, cool.
So so it's taking those things that are stressing and saying, okay, well, what can we do about this? Let's really dig down deeper. Do you actually need to be doing that thing? Can somebody else do it? Right? So if we're stressing about something, is that actually going to make a difference in your life if that gets done or doesn't get done? And oftentimes the answer is no, it's not going to make a difference. So why stress about it? Is it in your locus of control, or is it outside your locus of control? Because if it's outside, again, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, if you're stressing about, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? That's outside your control. There isn't any point in stressing about it, you know. And I'm not saying that I have always been good at this, Laura. This is something I've had to learn, because it stopped me in the past. And again, that's a self-sabotaging behavior, but you don't want to be stressing about that sort of thing, because you can't do anything. So, okay, what can I do? I can just do my best, and I can be in alignment. This is the holistic part. I can be in alignment with what I'm doing, what I'm saying, my values, how I feel, and how I want to bring something to the world. So that's how I work with people. It's like, first of all, I did a post about this the other day, and I said, other mentors will say, okay, well, let's look at the numbers. But my line would be, let's look at how in alignment you are. How in alignment are you feeling with what you're doing?
Yeah.
And I think that is a really good question for our listeners to ask themselves. How in alignment am I? Because when you become in alignment with what you're doing, everything becomes less stressful.
Yeah, it's I totally agree. And I think, you know, that it's amazing how sometimes you can say you're in alignment because you put whatever into it, and you're not, and you have to, like, a bit of. And again, it comes into that, having that third party perspective to help you come to those conclusions, I guess.
Yes.
So it's the world is a stressful place. It can be, right? It can be. There's so much I always think that about social media. We're bombarded all the time with social, you know, and it's just like, if you're not perfect, you're not good enough. And, you know, all those things are going through people's heads all the time. But let's talk, the thing you mentioned at the beginning, which I also absolutely love, is the concept of flow state, which is an amazing place to be. It's an amazing place to get to and be. And so talk a little bit more about that sort of, on the other end of peak performance, which is, high performance and getting into that flow state.
Yeah. Well, there are four sections in flow, and I think people really need to understand that very first section. The first section, the first thing we go through is struggle.
Okay.
And people will start to go through struggling, and they'll stop because it's hard. But actually, struggle is part of the work that you're doing to be able to get into the flow state. Because once you've gone through the struggle enough, and you'll know if you're struggling to work out how to do something and how to work something, or how to put a presentation together, or how to put a speech together, and you're really struggling with the words and the structure and everything, you have to do that to be able to get into a release state, what we call release. That's the second section. Then once you've released that, and you can do that by going off for a walk, you can do that by just some breathing. You'll know when you've struggled long enough and you just need some, and that can be a couple of hours that you're struggling, and you just go, I think I've learned enough now to be able to put it together. So then just go and release. And like I say, go for a walk in nature, go and stand outside, look at the clouds, do some breathing, have a cup of tea. Because we're in England, we would have a cup of tea. And then when you come back in, now you know where to start. And once you know where to start, and because you've done your evaluation, you've done some research, whatever you've done for that thing that you're wanting to get into the flow state for, and you've gone through the struggle, now you've got some structure to come back to. And when you've got that, at any point, you're much more likely to get into that flow state. And you can just dive in. And that flow state, for people that don't know what it is, it's that state where time bends. You don't really realize what else is going on around you. You're totally in the zone. That might be another good way to explain it. You're really in the zone. And you just work and work, and you do and you do and you do and you do. And then you come out the other side and you think, wow, that was amazing. Right? And you feel so good because you've got the serotonin and the dopamine and all of those endorphins bubbling away while you're in that flow state. And an important thing to remember is to stop when you've got about 80%. You've used up 80% of the flow, and you're still in a really good place, but you're thinking, okay, I'm probably coming to the end of this chunk of flow, and that might be 2.5 or 3 hours later. And then stop there, because then you go into the recovery phase. That's the fourth phase of flow. So you have to go and recover, do some active recovery. All right. And when you then come back to that project, you remember how good you felt when you were in that project, because that's how you left it. You left it feeling good, rather than feeling exhausted because you pushed on too far.
Very interesting. It's fascinating. So, leaving it in the top part is an interesting thing. I was thinking when you were talking about it, because I was thinking about when I do master classes, when I do train, I am literally in flow state. That's like the closest that when you talk about it, I'm like, I love it. I love doing it. I love interacting with people. I love, my intention is always to be very present and conscious and not worry about whatever else is going on. And I guess that has played that sort of patterns repeated for me over the years. But I like the idea of being able to do that just in normal circumstances, normal, like day-to-day circumstances.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we should know about you other than you've got a very poorly old Dalmatian dog? You're in the UK. You're an amazing peak performance coach. Anything else I should have asked you before we say goodbye?
Oh gosh. What I would say is, if anybody is interested and they want to get in touch and have a chat, then I'm very open to just having a little inquiry call to find out if I'm the right person, if I can help you, right? Because I can't help everybody, but also we're a fit to work together. So if that's something you're interested in listening in, then you can find, I'm sure Laura will let you know where to find me.
I was going to ask you after that question, how do we get in touch with you and what do we do? So we'll definitely put your links in the thing. But yeah, so get in touch with you. That's how people kind of find out more and
Yes.
get in touch with you personally and set up.
Yes. And another way to do that is to go to my YouTube channel, which is, as you can see here, Lucy J. Dutton, Holistic Peak Performance Coach. And actually this is being streamed to that channel right now. So, so hello, YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a YouTuber, if you're like listening to YouTube, there's lots of peak performance like snippets on there. There's stuff about flow. There are things about coaching snippets as well. So you can get a grasp of how I work and how I speak and how I am, because I'm not for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine. But I am for some, right? And some people go, yeah, that's somebody I'd like to find out more about. And then obviously it's a two-way street, Laura, isn't it? Whenever you're working with somebody, it's you and it's the other person, and you both have to align. And going back to that alignment piece is so important. I might be able to help the person, or they might think that what I do can help them, but we might not be in alignment.
Yeah.
And then that's not a good fit. So I'll help somebody to find the right person, because I know a lot of people.
That's awesome, and we will include all your links and stuff underneath this live, so people can get in touch with you. And I love the idea of being in alignment, and I would encourage anyone to speak with you and find out more about how you do what you do, because as I said, I think we all need you every month for the whole of our lives, don't we?
We all definitely need someone, and coaching is such an important part of.
We needed a peak performance coach. Thank you so much for being here. Lovely to talk and connect with you, and I look forward to seeing you really soon.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.